D. Okay, today I am going to show you how we, or my family at least, makes homemade chicken and noodles. We all have that time of the year, usually Thanksgiving and Christmas, or sometimes, like me, on my birthday. Our grandparents make that one special meal that we really enjoy. And for me, it's the homemade chicken and noodles. I'm going to explain to you on how to make homemade chicken and noodles today. Generally, the night before, I lay out my chicken. It can be chicken breast, chicken legs, a whole chicken. It really doesn't matter as long as you have some sort of chicken. I lay it out, I put it in the sink in cold water, and I put salt in the sink water, and I let it sit so it draws out all the blood during the night so you don't have excess blood in your chicken the next day. In the morning, I get up, I drain the water off, I rinse my chicken off, and then I'll set it on to boil. I usually set it on about 3 or 4 if your stove has numbers. It's not a medium heat, but it's not a low heat, just enough to kind of slowly cook it. And while that's slowly cooking, I start to make my noodles. I've gathered my supplies here. I've got some eggs and some flour, some baking powder, salt, and a little bit of water, because sometimes when you're mixing it up, and you'll see as I'm demonstrating, sometimes when you're mixing it up, a couple drops of water kind of helps it. I will begin by showing you how to mix up the dough for the chicken and noodles. I'm going to take me a couple eggs here. In my bowl here. Set that to the side. I like to kind of beat my eggs up so they're not whole eggs, they're just kind of pre-mixed a little bit. Helps when you add in the other stuff. I add a little bit of salt, some baking soda. My family tradition is we don't measure anything. We put it in, we go with it. That's about it. I mean, you can measure stuff out. I'm sure there's some recipe out there that has measurements, but I was taught not to measure it when when my grandmother showed me how to make the chicken and noodles, she didn't tell me to measure anything. It was just put it in and mix it up and go with it. Okay. Some flour here. I usually start off with a smaller amount. If I need more or something, I'll add it as we go. You want your egg mixture to be sticky-like, but not firm and not soupy. We need a little bit more flour in here. You want it to where it sticks to your fingers, but you don't have all the dough on your fingers. We're getting there. Let's add just a little bit more. And it doesn't hurt if you add just a little too much, because once you get your mixture mixed up, we're going to put it on a flour surface to roll it out. It just helps if you don't put too much when you're mixing it up, because when you put it on the flour surface and start rolling it out, it's going to be really hard. You don't want it really hard. You want it soft-like. We've got the consistency we want. It's kind of sticky, as you can tell, but it's not soupy, and it's not like real hard either. Okay. We'll put some flour on my surface here. I just use my countertop, or you can use your tabletop. It's not really important on what kind of surface I spread it out with my hands. Your hands and stuff will get dirty, but if you're anyone who likes to bake or cook or anything, you don't mind it anyway. And this is a smaller batch. I mean, you can make however big of a batch you want. Just for demonstrative purposes, I just made a smaller batch here. See how it kind of sticks to me, but it's not like real sticky. That's about how you want it. Put that to the side there. I'm going to step over here and wash my hands so we don't have this everywhere. Okay. And I take my flour and stuff, I just try to get it all over my batter here, because you don't want your noodles here to stick to anything. Right now they're like really, really soft and formful, and that's good. You don't want them hard and you don't want them real tough, because when they cook up, they're not going to be fluffy. You kind of want them fluffy when you cook them. Okay, there's our batter, our noodles. I generally like, after I form it into a ball and everything, I'll let it sit here 5 to 10 minutes, 8 minutes, just enough. It starts to help it rise, and it also helps break down all, like the baking soda and stuff that you put in, it helps break it down. So I generally, like I said, I let it sit here about 5 to 10 minutes, 8 minutes. It don't have to sit here too long, just enough time for it to do its thing. Once it has set here for the amount of time that you have designated for it to, you roll it out flat. You want about 1/4 to 1/2 inch thickness of it when you roll it out. Just roll it out like you roll anything else out. You may have to put some extra flour on the surface or some extra flour on top of it, because your rolling pin tends to stick to it. Not a big deal, just add a little bit of flour and go on about it. After I've rolled it out, the hardest part about it is I generally wait 4 to 6 hours to let them air dry. That just kind of to help harden them up and make them more a noodle consistency, so they're not so soft when you put them in. Once I've got some over here that I made earlier just to demonstrate, you want them kind of hard like. I mean, they're still squishy, but they've got a harder outside surface that you can feel. That's how you want them. You can cut them up into strips. I mean, Grandma always cut hers up into strips and then cut the strips in pieces. It really doesn't matter how you do it. Just, cut them up how you want. In my pot, like I stated earlier, the chicken, we thawed it overnight. We set it on the bowl in the morning. It boiled. You take your chicken out of your pot. You pick it off the bones, which I've already done that because that's a very lengthy process. Pick it off the bones. Put the chicken back in the water that you originally boiled it in. That way you have that chicken flavor. I usually put a couple scoops of butter in it. Kind of helps with the flavoring. Then you bring that all to boil. Once it's boiling, and you want it boiling because that's how your noodles cook. Once it's up and boiling, you want to put your noodles, let me fluff them around a little bit. You want to put your noodles into your chicken. And it's alright to have, I actually put the excess flour in with my chicken and noodles because the flour kind of helps thicken up the water. So, it doesn't hurt anything. Once you get them in, you want to stir them around, and you cook them until they puff up and they start floating to the top, and then you have your homemade chicken noodles. All right.